This dish is a flavor bomb. Moty chawl in Urdu or gate roje in Pashto. This is very similar to khichdi, and it's one of the best things I tried when I was in Pakistan. So I searched far and wide for moty chawl or fat rice, literally, when I was trying to recreate this dish, but I couldn't find that exact thing in the stores here in America. So I found Turkish rice, which is the baldo rice. You can also use osmanchik. It's short grain, fat rice, and it works perfectly for this dish, and it's way more accessible. So I would recommend using this kind of rice, and we're just going to soak it for 30 minutes. An essential part of this dish is whole moong dal. This is what it looks like, and we're going to soak this also for at least 30 minutes. Then I'm going to pressure cook 2 pounds of beef. I'm using top round, but chuck roast or stew meat works fine too. And we're going to fill the Instant Pot with water all the way up to the pressure cooker max line. This is going to be exactly enough water for us to cook our rice with later. And we're going to pressure cook this for 40 minutes because we want the meat to be extremely tender. Now I'm using a huge pot because I'm making 1 kilo of rice, and I've perfected this dish at these measurements. If you want to cut this dish in half or even in thirds, you can. But if you are going to make it, I suggest just make the whole kilo of rice because this dish freezes extremely well. And then you'll have leftovers for months, or even you can whip it out during Ramadan when you don't feel like cooking. So we start by frying our onions, and I reserved some of the onions because we're going to use that for the tarka later, and I'll show you what I mean. So we just want to get our onions nice and golden, and then we can add our ginger and garlic and chili paste. And if you don't have green chili paste, you can just chop up some green chilies and stir them in here. And then we're also going to add fresh green chilies at the end, so you could even skip it here. And we want to cook this for about 2 to 3 minutes to cook those ginger garlic down so they don't taste raw. Now at this point we can add our diced tomatoes, and we want to cook these down. These need to be extremely soft. So I'm just going to add the lid and then do other stuff while that's cooking for about 10 minutes. So by now our meat should be done pressure cooking, so I'm going to release the vent. And using a slotted spoon, I'm going to separate the meat from the broth or the yakhni because we're going to use the yakhni to cook the rice in. And then in a separate bowl, we're going to shred our meat extremely well using 2 forks. Then I took my broth to the sink to measure it, but to be honest with you, you don't have to measure it. If you're using an 8-quart Instant Pot and you fill it with water all the way up to the pressure cooker max line, that is enough broth to cook the rice in. But if you want to be exact, you want to measure out 16 cups of broth. Now, if you're not using an Instant Pot or did this another way and you don't have enough broth to make 16 cups, you can just add water to make up the rest. After about 10 minutes, our tomatoes should be soft, and now we can start adding our spices. And this is what makes this dish so unique, is the variety of spices. We're going to add salt, turmeric, red chili powder, and red pepper flakes, chaat masala, coriander powder, and cumin powder. Oh, and garam masala too. And the measurements for the spices and everything else will be in the caption. So we just want to cook these spices down into the masala for a couple of minutes. And now we're ready to add our broth. The dal is going to take a little bit longer than the rice, so we're going to give that a head start and add it, and then we're going to cook that for 10 minutes with the lid on before adding our rice. So after 10 minutes, we can lift the lid, and now we can add our rice and our meat. And make sure you drain the rice first before adding it in. And then our meat, I just shredded it very well with 2 forks. And since this is such a large pot, we're going to have a hard time getting it to boil without the lid. So we're going to add the lid, let it build up the boil on high for 5 minutes, and then reduce the heat to low and cook this for 30 minutes. So during the last 5 minutes of the rice cooking, we can make our tarka, which is just some oil and onions that we're going to fry until they're golden brown. And then while it's sizzling, we're going to pour it on top of the gate roje, and that's going to give it this amazing flavor and texture. Okay, so our 30 minutes are up and we can lift the lid, and this is how it should look. Don't be alarmed if you see some water. This is supposed to be sticky, mushy rice. So when we stir that liquid in, it's going to be delicious. And a key step in giving it the right texture is stirring it a lot. So you want to stir it continuously for about 5 minutes. You should really do this with a wooden spoon, but I didn't have one because mine broke. But keep stirring it like this continuously for like a good 5 minutes to give it that sticky texture. And I just want to show you here how nice and thick and sticky this is. This is the texture you should get when you start to pull at it. Now make sure your tarka is sizzling and just pour it all over the top. This is going to add a really amazing flavor to the dish. And you want to stir that in well to make sure the oil goes all throughout the dish. And the last step is to stir in some fresh green chilies. I added about 2. Now look at how gorgeous this is. This dish is really flavorful. It's one of the most flavorful Pakistani dishes I've had, and it is so good. It's a complete meal. You don't need anything else with it. Just enjoy this on a rainy, cold day, and I really hope you give this a try.